It's a holiday in Philly every 5 days when Roy Halladay is on the bump. Today on Fox Saturday Baseball, the two-time Cy Young Award winner deals to David Wright and the suddenly streaking New York Mets in an NL East showdown. Speaking of holidays, don't sleep on Matt Holliday. Albert Pujols may get all the headlines, but Holliday's leading the league in hitting. Today, the first-place Cards head to Hotlanta to take a chop out of the Braves. And in Tampa, James Shields takes the mound for the Rays, eyeing his third straight complete game win, while Torrey Hunter and the Halos look to end April in style. The best in baseball are playing today, right now, on Fox. Welcome to the Budweiser pregame show on Fox. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. The final day of April sees the Phillies in familiar territory atop the NL East. Winning a fifth straight division crown is the mere minimum of what's expected out of a group of veterans. Today they'll deal with the Mets and Jose Reyes, who have won 6 of 8 after a slow start. Meanwhile, it was the power that was on display by Ryan Howard and the Phillies last night. He blasted 2 homers, including his 10th career grand slam. Today, all Reyes and the Mets have to deal with is Roy Halladay. The two-time Cy Young Award winner finished 1 out shy of a complete game in his last outing, a 14-strikeout gem against San Diego. And with that, hi, everybody. We welcome you to chilly Philadelphia for another live edition of Fox Saturday Baseball. In just a few minutes, most of you are going to stay right here in the city of brotherly love to see the good doctor do his work against the Mets. Others are off to Atlanta to see if the Cardinals can make it 2 straight against the Atlanta Braves. Matt Holliday, one reason why. He is hitting a league-best .417 this year, but don't sleep on Jason Hayward. He has homered in 3 of his last 5 games, including last night. The rest of you are off to Tampa to see if the Angels can win 2 straight against the Rays. Joel Pinheiro on the DL all season because of a sore shoulder makes his season debut today against James Shields, who eyes his 3rd straight complete game. Meanwhile, LA's other team was back home kicking off a 9-game homestand, and they were doing it in style against the San Diego Padres. It was the last game that finished up on Friday's slate, and all eyes were on Andre Ethier. The guy is on fire right now, and last night he extended his hit streak to 25 games. That is an April record. Did it with this 5th inning double to raise his average to 375, 2 points higher than his teammate Matt Kemp. That 6th homer of the year gave the Dodgers a 3-1 lead. It's now 3-2 in the 9th. And look at Tony Gwynn Jr. preserving the win, snagging it off with his former teammate Nick Hundley. 3-2 is your final right there. Well, this weekend, of course, the NFL Draft wraps up, and that got us thinking about players that laced it up in both the NFL and Major League Baseball. Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, Brian Jordan, they all come to mind. So why don't we think about today's major leaguers? Let's find out just how good they were at other sport and what their second favorite sport was while growing up.
Second best sport was soccer, for sure. Yeah. Weird, right? Played up until I was a senior in high school.
Basketball, and obviously not good enough. I was all right. You know, I like to shoot. I knew early on that baseball is what I wanted to do.
I love soccer. I think it helped me in every other sport. And, you know, to this day, I still say soccer had a lot of impact on, you know, what I do on the baseball field, my footwork.
I could dunk when I was about 5'8".
You have video proof of this?
No, I don't. All I cared about was being able to dunk a basketball. You know, it was just like a life goal of mine.
Hockey, and I felt like I was pretty good. I had fun playing it. It's still my favorite sport. I love hockey.
I had a scholarship to Nebraska to go play football. I ended up getting drafted, so I chose baseball over football.
I played basketball, soccer, and baseball in high school. I wasn't that great at basketball. You know, I was a little bit too short, a little bit too slow. I could shoot okay, could handle the ball okay, but obviously it wasn't going to be the NBA for me.
I got into judo. My grandmother gave me the lessons when I was for my 5th birthday. I wanted to be a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle.
Football. Oh, yeah, I love football because of Prime Time himself. Deion was the man. Prime Time, you know, he was doing his little dances and stuff. So, you know, I used to imitate that stuff.
I don't know about you. I'm still not buying that whole C.J. Wilson 5'8" I can dunk thing, but whatever. All right, coming up, it's a little baseball. For those of you staying here in Philadelphia, a live interview with Phil's first baseman, Ryan Howard. We are getting you ready for a full slate of baseball here on Fox. Some of you will stay here in the city of brotherly love for the Mets and the Phillies. Others are off to Atlanta to see the first-place Cards battle the Braves. The rest of you get the Angels and the Rays from Tampa. First pitch of your game is coming up next on Fox.
Of the afternoon with a streak of 135 consecutive sellouts. It's game 2 of the series as the New York Mets contend with the homestanding Philadelphia Phillies. Phillies big winners in the opener last night. Our Ken Rosenthal is standing by with one of the heroes.
Thanks, Matt. We're here with Ryan Howard. Ryan, 10 runs for the team last night. You had 2 homers. Still lots of questions about the Phillies offense. Can this offense do what you guys have done before?
I think so. I mean, we know it's going to be a long season. It's going to be ups and downs. And right now, we're finding ways to get runs across.
Roy Halladay on the mound today. We all know about the 4 aces. But what's it like playing behind this guy?
Roy, keeps a great tempo. He goes out. He's got a game plan. He tries to go out and execute his game plan. And he's just a competitor. Whenever you're out there, playing behind a pitcher, you want him to be out there competing, and that's what he does.
Ryan, thanks a lot. Matt, back to you.
All right, Ken, thanks. And back upstairs, joined by Tim McCarver. And Timmy, a couple of weeks ago, we saw the Mets, and they were ready to blow the thing up. They were struggling off to a very rough start on both sides of the scorecard. Since then, the New York Mets have turned things around to a degree.
Well, they've won 6 in a row, even though it was against 2 last-place clubs. But I think there's optimism on the field for the Mets. Now, if at the trading deadline 2 months from now they have to trade a guy like Jose Reyes for payroll, well, then all bets are off. But right now, if they can allow their young players to develop, Jonathan Neese, who's pitching this afternoon, they're going to be okay. We'll see.
And for today, Jonathan Neese and the Mets contending with reigning Cy Young Award winner Roy Halladay and the Phillies. We're back with starting lineups in the opening pitch coming up next. Had enough of the royal wedding? Well, don't dismay. We've got plenty of our own baseball royalty for you today. The Kings of Queens have suddenly found their way. But the Philadelphia dynasty refuses to go away. Join us today to see who'll catch the bouquet. It's the Mets and Phillies coming your way. The opening pitch is brought to you by Budweiser. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. Roy Halladay on the mound for the Philadelphia Phillies this afternoon, making his 6th starting appearance of the year. Here's the Taco Bell starting lineup that faces him for the Mets. Reyes, Murphy, and Wright off the top. Beltran, Bay, and Davis 4 through 6. Josh Tolley, Jason Pridey, and John Neese round things out for Terry Collins and the visiting New York Mets. Underway this afternoon, Jose Reyes bites on the first pitch and sends a fly ball out to right, where Ben Francisco handles it for the first out of the afternoon. Well, Roy Halladay, Tim, coming off a start Sunday in San Diego, in which he went deep into the afternoon, just 1 out away from a complete game victory, allowed 1 run, struck out a career-high tying 14, and threw 130 pitches along the way. As you glance at his season line to date, he has been terrific. First offering to Daniel Murphy is in for a strike.
Well, in order to be successful like Halladay has been, he has to stay ahead of the hitters. So it would make sense for the Mets to swing early in the count.
Back up the middle, backhanded nicely by Wilson Valdez, and there are 2 quick outs for Halladay this afternoon.
Jose Reyes comes out, swings at the first pitch, and then Murphy at the second pitch. So 3 pitches, 2 outs for the durable and resilient Doc Halladay.
So with 2 quick outs, that'll bring in David Wright, who at 238 has not exactly savored his career meetings with Roy Halladay. 5-time All-Star has struggled against his assignment this afternoon, just 2 for 18 against the 2-time Cy Young Award winner.
David Wright's got a lot of company with a lot of right-handed hitters in both the American and the National League, and not hitting Halladay very well. 4 strikes from Halladay.
5 of 5 in that department, and he's got David Wright behind quickly, 0-2.
Good sinker. Here's a guy like a lot of great pitchers who, with finger pressure and a strong arm, pitches effectively.
Well, don't bend over to pick up any change in the sofa cushions. You might miss something this afternoon. Roy Halladay working quickly to retire the Mets in order in the first. The first, this is how the Phillies align in the bottom of the inning. Phillies lineup brought to you by Taco Bell. Think outside the bun. Switch hitters Victorino and Polanco off the top. Polanco has hit safely in 9 straight. Jimmy Rollins, Ryan Howard, and Ben Francisco 3 through 5. It'll be John Mayberry, Wilson Valdez. Dane Sardina makes the start just up from Lehigh Valley. He's behind the plate. Roy Halladay batting number 9, and they'll take swings against the left-hander Jonathan Neese on the mound this afternoon.
Don't be deceived by that 1-3 record. This young man's got a chance to be a very, very good pitcher. Only 24 years old, from Defiance, Ohio. He shuts down the running game. Only 1 stolen base in his 1+ years in the majors. And as we said, with a little confidence, could be a very, very good major league pitcher.
Shane Victorino ready to start things out. 1 for 3 in the opener yesterday. Victorino's been very good in the afternoon, as his Philly team has in general, for that matter, as he lays off the first pitch, a ball and no strikes. Phillies have been perfect playing in the sunshine this year, Tim, and as such, Charlie Manuel didn't want to change a thing prior to game time today.
You'd think in April being the cruelest month as far as weather is concerned, you'd think more teams wouldn't be better in the daytime.
Phillies trying to stay a perfect winless in the afternoon. 9-0 so far in day games, and Charlie Manuel told us before the game today he wasn't going to hit on the field because they haven't hit on the field prior to a day game all year. And I think he preceded that statement by saying, "I'm not superstitious," but as Polanco pops it into foul territory, Josh Thole is there, and he can't make the catch, trapped it against the screen.
I think had Josh known where he was, he could have gone to the fence in a hurry instead of trying to time it and make the play, because he at first laid glove only on it. You can see him looking at the fence, doesn't know where he is. Usually if the ball doesn't have a lot of hang time, get to the fence and then look up.
And Victorino staying in there at 2 balls and 2 strikes. In terms of Jonathan Neese in his most recent appearance, it was one that some felt might have saved his turn in the rotation for the foreseeable future. His best start of the year came in his most recent outing on April 24th against the Diamondbacks. Victorino lines that into the corner. Jason Bay lays out and makes a fine diving catch.
You've got to respect the power of Victorino. Jason Bay going to his right and in. Nice play.
Well, nothing will test the injured rib cage like having to lay out for a catch early, as was the case with Bay a moment ago. Here is the right-handed hitting Placido Polanco. I believe I misspoke when I called him a switch hitter earlier. It's the switch hitter Jimmy Rollins, of course, on deck behind Polanco. And Placido takes a strike. There's Jimmy ready to swing it from the right side against the southpaw Neese. Polanco into the opposite corner. He's going to take the turn at first and try for second. The throw in from Beltran, not in time, and a 1-out double stands for Placido Polanco. While we have a moment, let's take a look at today's defensive alignment for the Mets, brought to you by Scotts Bay, Friday and Beltran. In the infield, Bright, Reyes, Murphy, and Davis. And it's Josh Thole receiving Jonathan Neese this afternoon.
Matt, that was terrific base running by Polanco with Beltran going toward the line. Polanco took advantage of it. A Beltran of 5 years ago probably would have made that play, but he's not moving like he has in past years because of that balky knee of his. But good base running. Polanco running hard out of the box. The play's in front of him, and he makes it into second base.
Placido Polanco wasting no time to run his hitting streak to 10 straight, and he's in scoring position now for Jimmy Rollins with 1 gone in the first. And the three-time All-Star takes a breaking ball for a strike, 1-1. Rollins has had little trouble reaching base, as that number indicates. Driving in runs had been something of a challenge for Jimmy, and this gets us right into one of the big talking points in the market early on, Tim, and that's how Charlie Manuel has aligned his Phillies this year, using for the most part Placido Polanco in the 2-hole and Rollins batting third.
Well, I'm not really big on positioning in the lineup, because the only time you're really guaranteed first time through the lineup for a guy to lead off, or the possibility of a guy being in scoring position for your number 3 hitter, even though traditionally your number 3, 4, and 5 hitters are RBI positions in the batting order. 1 and 2 are run scoring positions.
2 balls and 2 strikes. The count to Rollins. Saw Ryan Howard lurking on deck a moment ago as Rollins fouls that one off. Well, a lot of folks that watch the Phillies feel like Jimmy Rollins is a guy that perhaps better utilizes his skill set in the 1 or 2 spots, and Charlie concedes that that's his desire as well. But this is a different Phillies lineup in 2011. Without Jason Worth, with a platoon of players, he's had to do things a little bit differently, and for the foreseeable future, it's Jimmy Rollins batting third. On the ground for Jose Reyes. And 2 away for John Neese. Tim, let's take a look at today's 4 keys to the game.
Well, in an impatient world, Terry Collins is trying to be patient, and he learned to be patient as the minor league director with the Dodgers and with the New York Mets. As far as the Phillies are concerned, obviously they have great talent, but Charlie Manuel, one of his big jobs is to keep them pushing.
Ryan Howard now with the runner in scoring position. Had the big night yesterday. 2 home runs, 1 a grand slam, 6 runs batted in. Let's walk you back to yesterday. Series opener, and against Mike Pelfrey, a big night for Ryan Howard indeed. Got to Dylan G out of the bullpen for his 2nd of 2. And it was the Phillies in a rout. There had been a flu bug, and I guess accurately said, Tim, there still is a flu bug that the Mets have been dealing with all week. And Big Mike Pelfrey, one of the victims yesterday, he said prior to the game he felt good, but it looked like he hit the wall in the middle innings. So when you lose 10 pounds after dealing with the flu, it stands to reason you're not going to be yourself.
A very gracious Terry Collins said in the Philadelphia Inquirer this morning that perhaps it was his fault. They may have wanted to rush Mike Pelfrey in there last night, and maybe they should have held him back for a couple of days and started Dylan Gee instead.
Ball and 2 strikes to Ryan Howard. John Neese trying to pitch out of an early bind, and it's still 1 and 2.
But you are right. I mean, that's a lot of weight to lose in a very short period of time.
You know, even for a big post-up forward-looking body like that of Mike Pelfrey, you lose 10 to 15 pounds in a week. Couldn't make it out of the 5th a night ago. And 2 and 2 to Ryan Howard now.
Ryan Howard with 94 home runs to the opposite field. That is by far the most home runs to left field and to center field than any other major league player. And if you're playing percentages here on a fastball, he'll probably hit the ball to left field because it's a left-hander on the mound. Right-hander, then he'd pull it like he did last night.
And he works at full 3 and 2. And speaking of gracious, our thanks to Ryan Howard for taking some time to chat with Ken Rosenthal live just before first pitch this afternoon. Something that not every superstar will concede. And the payoff home to him. A swing and a miss. A runner stranded in scoring position. We are 1 inning into the afternoon. Mets and Phillies are scoreless. Budweiser is sponsored by Taco Bell, think outside the bun. By Scott's, the official lawn care company of Major League Baseball. And by Sprint, all together now. Play Baseball Hot Streak and win cash prizes. Pick a player, pick a stat, start a hot streak. Pick 15 straight and win $15 in Fox Sports Shop Bucks. Play today at foxsports.com/fantasy. Plus, pick the most correct in 1 month and win $500. Tomorrow's May 1st, so get your streak started now at foxsports.com/fantasy. Carlos Beltran leads off the visitors' second. Beltran, Bay, and Davis. And Carlos Beltran's paying attention. He knew that Roy Halladay pitched 6 pitches in the first, all strikes, and he was swinging early.
That's our point earlier about swinging early in the count. Against a guy like Halladay, you do not want to fall behind, and he throws an awful lot of first pitch strikes. 7 straight strikes from Halladay in 1+ inning.
Here's Jason Bay now with the leadoff hitter aboard. First base runner of the day for the Mets. Well, Jason Bay has been back a little over a week, and the Mets have certainly turned things around with his arrival. 6-2 since he started his 2011 season. Opened the year on the disabled list, of course. And so many, Tim, were quick to credit Jason himself with that turnaround. The fact remains it's his presence that has helped the rest of the lineup. Ike Davis has been hot the last week. Carlos Beltran, David Wright. The equation has been greater with Bay out there every day. He goes down on 3 pitches in his first try this afternoon, however.
Now here it is through 5 hitters, and Roy Halladay has yet to throw a ball. Get the idea and the thinking that the only time he throws a ball is when he wants to. There's nothing errant that leaves his hand.
10 pitches, 10 strikes as Ike Davis stands in now with 1 out and 1 on.
But to your point, Matt, I think there's nobody who appreciates Jason Bay's presence, and manager Terry.
That's on the ground to second. Valdez to Rollins, back to Howard, and before you can even finish the gentleman's name, a double play gets Halladay out of the inning. Saturday Baseball is presented by Bud Light Lime. Just the right taste of Bud Light with a refreshing splash of 100% natural lime flavor. Ben Francisco opens the home second, the 5-6-7 part of the order for Charlie Manuel against the Mets. Scoreless early on this afternoon. Back with Ken Rosenthal, Tim McCarver, Matt Vasgersian. Good to have you along with us on Fox Saturday Baseball today. Ben Francisco 2 for 4 with a couple of runs batted in last night. Two balls and a strike from Jonathan Neese.
You mentioned Jason Worth earlier. Jason signing a big contract with Washington. So Ben Francisco will get a lot more playing time as a result.
And for the most part, in a platoon out there and responding nicely to the opportunity to play every day. 4 home runs, 18 runs batted in, as he stays alive at 2-2.
Yeah, we talked to Charlie Manuel about Ben before the game, and Charlie last year said, you know, that Ben Francisco should be a better hitter. And Charlie said he thinks that this year he is, with the extra playing time.
Little jam shot for Murphy, and one away for Neese here in the second. We mentioned John Neese's last start, Tim, being his best so far this season, as John Mayberry stands in now with 1 gone. He went 7 innings in a win against the Diamondbacks, his only winner of the year so far. And the word that you heard thrown around after that successful start 6 days ago was pace. Dan Warthen, the Mets pitching coach, and John Neese have worked a lot on his pace, specifically in adverse circumstances. Runners aboard, hitters counts. The two felt like John had been rushing in those situations previously, and they felt like he did a good job pacing himself in his last outing.
You know, you can learn a lot about pacing yourself when you're going against a guy like Roy Halladay.
Another opportunity for Murphy. And 2 quick outs in the second.
Halladay is a guy who works fast but doesn't rush things. And if you're a young pitcher, that's something you want to learn. You can work fast but not rush things. In other words, work on your pitches, make pitches quicker, but while you're winding up or while you're stretching, don't rush it to the plate. Let the natural follow-through take over.
2 gone, base is empty now for Wilson Valdez, who was 2 for 2 against Neese earlier this month. He's picking on the first pitch, and Daniel Murphy very busy in the second. A 1-2-3 inning for John Neese. We'll return to Philadelphia after a word from your local Fox station. Fox Saturday Baseball is presented by Budweiser as we welcome you back inside Citizens Bank Park. Roy Halladay and Jonathan Neese getting after it today as the bottom third of the order starts things against Doc Halladay in the third. It's one of those afternoons when the Hall of Fame broadcaster Vin Scully used to say, on a day in which the likes of Bob Gibson and Sandy Koufax used to square off against one another, two fellows who are pitching like they're double parked.
I was thinking of that line myself. If there's ever a guy who does that, this one does. 13 straight strikes to start the game.
Tolley sends a ground ball to Rollins, and there's one away in the third. We better get the defense posted here, Tim,
all right,
before we're in the ninth. Today's defensive alignment for the Phillies brought to you by Scotts. John Mayberry making his fourth start of the season. Victorino and Francisco out there with him. Placido Polanco, Jimmy Rollins, Wilson Valdez, and Ryan Howard in the infield. Dane Sardinha just called up from Lehigh Valley, as we mentioned a moment ago, catching Roy Halladay this afternoon.
Roy Halladay won't even let you say two names.
He's going to have to reimburse somebody for all the commercials we're going to miss. Into the corner for Mayberry, and still here we are, 2 out into the third. Tim, Roy Halladay has not thrown a ball.
See, you've learned. Catch by Mayberry. You didn't even say John Mayberry Jr. You can't say that. You can't use the whole name with Halladay pitching.
At some point, we're going to hear from Ken Rosenthal this afternoon. I think Kenny's going to start taking it personally if Roy Halladay continues to work this quickly. Here's Jonathan Neese now with 2 gone.
Roy Halladay makes an announcer feel like he's doing a silent movie.
Probably better for our audience at this point. John Neese is hitless so far this afternoon, or this year rather, and just 3 for 53 in his career, and it's John Neese that gets to Roy Halladay here in the third.
John, who stumbles around first base, does it not happen like that occasionally? All strikes to the first 8 in the order, and then 2 strikes to Neese, and he singles inside the line. Good play by Mayberry to hold John to a single.
One time, miss it one time. 17 for 17 in the strikes department. Here's Jose Reyes now. Let's see how aggressively Jose plays it with a runner on. He lets one go for a strike. Reyes flied to right to start the ball game. Still over 300 for the year. Roy Halladay threw an awful lot in his last start as he finally misses, and a sarcastic raspberry comes up from the Philly faithful this afternoon. That's a well-earned reputation. You know better than anybody, Tim. Philly fans hate the reputation they have for the whole booing of Santa Claus. They can't stand hearing the story. Every announcer that comes into this town tells it. And you get a guy out there that's thrown 17 straight strikes. He misses and they boo him. Sarcastically, might I add. There's the 1-2 to Reyes. 2 balls and 2 strikes now. But something we'll talk about, the fact that Halladay threw 130 pitches his last time around. And of the people concerned in this day and age of the game with pitch counts, don't count Roy Halladay or Charlie Manuel among them.
That makes 3 of us.
If you look at the track record, think about Roy Halladay last year with the perfect game in May, the postseason no-hitter. Nowhere in his following starts does there indicate a guy who worked too hard to complete the gem. And Reyes slaps a ground ball to second. Halladay strands the 2-out single. Scoreless in Philly. Kids will never forget. Go to ChevyBaseball.com to support youth baseball. Plus, enter to win one of 4 trips to the 2011 Major League Baseball All-Star Game and the keys to a new Chevrolet.
You had a shot of Ashburn Alley, named after Richie Ashburn, of course, the most beloved sports figure in this city's history. Next to Harry Callis, his longtime partner. Whitey died in 1997, Harry a couple of years ago, and no two guys were more popular than those two in this city.
Scoreless here at Citizens Bank Park as Dane Sardinia Everybody else seems so worried about the pitch counts, but the two principals in this equation could.
Well, Matt, actually, Charlie is somewhat concerned, but maybe not in the way you'd think. He says that he doesn't mind any of his 4 aces going 125 pitches in one start. But he says he does grow concerned when it's maybe 2 of 3 or 3 of 4. And with Halladay, he is mindful of not overworking him early. There was a stretch last season, Charlie says, where Roy actually needed a breather.
Ken, thanks. Here is Halladay with the bases empty and 1 gone. I would imagine, Tim, that it'd be impossible not to have a stretch in a 162-game season where a starter could use a blow.
It's not the fact that pitch counts are not important. It's where they are in importance. I mean, it's gotten to the point in baseball, and it's trickled down into Little League, where when a young man comes home, the mother or father of the young Little League pitcher says, "Johnny, how was your pitch count today?" It used to be, "Johnny, did you win today?" That's all that mattered. And now it's, "Johnny, were you economical with your pitches?" I mean, it's ridiculous. The importance is not nearly as great as we in the game, the media in the game, purports it to be.
2 gone now for Shane Victorino.
Winning is still the biggest thing, and you know, there are people that are, you know, they're overwhelming the game with this pitch count, and I think it's ridiculous. Throw away the clicker and win or lose. That's my thinking on that.
Little chopper out to second base where Daniel Murphy's been busy this afternoon. And it's a 1-2-3 third for Jonathan Neese, rolling right along, still scoreless in Philly. Game presented by Budweiser is sponsored by Ford, Drive One, and by Klondike Ice Cream. What would you do for a Klondike bar? Back with Tim McCarver, Matt Vasgersian, Roy Halladay, and John Neese have worked quickly this afternoon. Top half of the fourth. No score between the Mets and Phillies as Daniel Murphy leads things off for New York. Murphy, Wright, and Beltran. Roy Halladay has scattered a pair of singles thus far, to Beltran leading off the second and to John Neese with 2 gone in the third. A third single comes by Daniel Murphy. His second hit of the series, and he's aboard to lead off the inning.
Mets trying to find a defensive spot for Murphy, but I'll tell you one thing, he can flat out swing the bat. Every stop in the minor leagues, he's done the same thing.
Here's David Wright now, called out on strikes in his first plate appearance today. Yeah, that second base position for the Mets has already turned over and evolved early on in 2011. They opened the season with a Rule 5 selection, Brad Emis there. Emis had his share of difficulties with major league pitching. And it was just awfully hard for Terry Collins to ignore the bat he had on the bench in Daniel Murphy. 1-1 to David Wright.
It's not to be a mean statement, but David is not a normal middle infielder, and that puts a lot of pressure on him. But the thing is, from a practical standpoint, he's got to drive in more than he lets in. And that can be a key thing around, the pitcher having his best friend being a double play ball. I mean, he's working on the footwork around second base. He's played left field. He's played first base. The Mets have valiantly tried to get him a position defensively to play.
Well, time for Daniel included some second base in the Dominican Republic this past winter,
right,
in an effort to make himself a little bit more valuable. Halladay out of the stretch as Wright chops a ball to third. Polanco to second, not in time to get the lead runner. Both runners are safe.
Well, Polanco makes the right play because there's no way he's going to get David Wright. Too far to go. He goes the short way. Valdez becomes the first baseman, but Murphy beat the throw. Credit Daniel Murphy for running hard into second base.
So for the first time this afternoon, the Mets have multiple base runners aboard. Carlos Beltran now, he's got one of the 4 hits against Roy Halladay. That ball off David Wright's bat indeed scored as an infield single. Well, so in our continuing discussion of Daniel Murphy and trying to prove his mettle to the organization, making himself a little bit more valuable defensively. Certainly we know he can hit. Heads up base running, as you point out, Tim. To try to continue opening eyes in front of his general manager as Carlos Beltran is now 2 for 2, and the Mets are going to try it with Murphy rather, who's waved around to score and give New York a 1-0 lead.
Once a game begins, the manager on the field is a third base coach, and that's a good play by Chip Hale, who realizes, watch Victorino back on his heels. The ball forced him back on his heels, and that's why he sent Daniel Wright, even though there were no outs. Wright turning around and looking, there's no reason to look towards center field. The only guy you look at when you're at second base is the third base coach. He is your antennae over there.
Jason Bay swinging early in the count and sends a fly ball out to Victorino in center. Wright tags up and gets to third, so runners at the corners with 1 gone now. But we're seeing that early approach, that aggressive approach, translate into success here for the New York hitters.
There's David Wright tagging up and easily goes to third base.
So with runners at the corners, that'll give Ike Davis a chance. He grounded into an inning-ending double play back in the second. Ike homered yesterday, number 5 on the year. Mets cracked the scoreboard first against Roy Halladay this afternoon. Popped him up. Fading into foul territory. Polanco's got a play for out number 2, and that's one big out. 2 away here in the 4th.
Scoring the first run of the ball game. Watch Daniel Murphy on the base hit by Beltran look back at center field. There's no reason to look back. The only guy you pay attention to is the third base coach, who was already looking at the center fielder, and he'll let you know, and he did, to give the Mets the 1-0 lead.
Josh Thole now. Runners at the corners remain with 2 away. Thole grounded a shortstop earlier today. Little smaller sample size, but Josh Thole has had a lot of success against Roy Halladay. 7 of 12 at the start of play this afternoon. And if you hear the Mets talk about that, it's not a fluke. Last year, Josh Thole made contact with 98% of the strikes that he swung at. His plate coverage is terrific.
Well, you know, you can tell by the way he holds his bat that he's a contact hitter. Nobody will choke up that much and not be a contact hitter. You never see a guy who swings through a lot of pitches that chokes up on the bat 2 inches.
And all very confusing to the Mets then, given his track record, given his approach, why he had struck out as often as he had through the first 3 weeks of the season. Something that Josh was frustrated with himself. But his struggles were symbolic of those of the entire lineup. And Terry Collins confirmed that today, Tim, when he told us that they were just trying to do too much while they were in the throes of the 7-game losing streak a couple of weeks ago. Batting coach Dave Hudgens has worked a lot with Josh Thole, who sprays a ground ball to Jimmy Rollins. That'll retire the side. 3 singles to open the inning. Mets do get a run. Ryan Howard and company will try to get it back as we go to the bottom of the 4th. 1-0 Mets. Well, the Mets break through against Roy Halladay for a run in the fourth, bottom of the inning now, and it'll be Placido Polanco to lead things off. Polanco, Rollins, and Howard against John Neese. Polanco doubled and was left stranded in the first. Had extended his hitting streak to 10 in a row. Well, nobody hotter than the Dodgers' Andre Ethier. Chris Rose will have more on his terrific April as we continue here in the inning. 2 balls and no strikes from Neese. You know, this matchup, John Neese and Roy Halladay, is a pitching rematch, if you will, of a game played here at Citizens Bank Park less than a month ago, back on the 7th of April. That's sent out to right, and Beltran's got it. And that was a game in which the Phillies rolled all over the Mets and Neese and beat them up 11-0. A little different story so far early on today. Here's Rollins now, grounded to shortstop in his first try. Jimmy hitless on that afternoon against John Neese back on the 7th of April. And he rolls over a ground ball to third for David Wright. 2 quick outs in the fourth. Tonight, NASCAR on Fox is in Richmond and goes under the lights, where Kyle Busch will try to defend his title and take home his second checkered flag this year. Coverage of the Sprint Cup Series racing begins tonight with pre-race show delivered by Pizza Hut at 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific in high definition here on Fox. Carl Edwards on top in the Sprint Cup standings. 2 quick outs now for Ryan Howard. No, the only Philly base runner so far this afternoon has been Polanco with that first inning double.
7 of the 11 outs on the ground. I remember when Eddie Stanky was the manager of the Chicago White Sox back in the 60s. He used to say, get me 20 ground balls in a game. Of course, those were the days guys were pitching complete games. Get me 20 ground ball outs, and I'll buy you a suit. That's when suits were only $40 or $50 either. Eddie was no dummy.
I never had Eddie Stanky for an early sabermetrician. He had it quantified that way, huh? 20 ground ball outs.
Get me 20 ground ball outs in a game, and you get a new suit.
Ben Francisco waiting next. Here's the 2-1 home. And Howard sends a ground ball to the shifted infield. Reyes over there in the second baseman spot to throw him out. That's 11 in a row set down by John Neese. Through 4-1-0 New York as Jason Pridey, their center fielder, leads things off in the 5th against Roy Halladay. Pridey, Neese, and Reyes for New York. Jason homered yesterday, his second since being called up to the big club. Mets claimed him off waivers from the Twins roster back in February. And he was summoned up from AAA Buffalo when Angel Pagan went on the shelf. Has played well in his absence and is a player that Terry Collins feels is the best defensive outfielder they had in their system at the time of his recall. 0-2. Roy Halladay yielded the run in the 4th on 3 straight singles. One was an infield base hit, and then got Bay Davis and Tolley to minimize the damage at just a run.
That's the first curveball that Halladay has featured, and we're in the 5th inning. A breaking ball pulled foul as Pridey is out in front. Roy Halladay does not depend on that curve a lot. Again, just finger pressure and throws a ton of strikes.
And a base hit back up the middle off the bat of Jason Pridey. Leadoff hitter aboard for the 3rd time in 5 innings as we check in with Chris Rose in a DirecTV game break.
That's right, Matt. You mentioned it early last night. Andre Ethier, a 5th inning double to extend his April record hitting streak to 25 games. Tonight he faces off against Tim Stauffer. He is 3 for 11 lifetime against him. Remember, to see every baseball game, the most in HD, it's 1-800-DIRECTV. And Tim McCarver, do you know your longest hitting streak in your career?
I think 18 games. I don't remember that far back.
Oh, it wasn't that long ago.
No.
It was 13 games.
Oh,
and it was
okay.
in 65.
I do err on the side of more than less.
Chris, thanks. Andre Ethier not scheduled to face a left-handed starter until this coming Friday, when the guy at the plate, John Neese, pitches against he and the Dodgers at Citi Field in New York. So when looking at this hitting streak, stands to reason that it could get a little healthier still over the coming week, Tim, with Ethier facing nothing but right-handed starters for the next 5 days. Neese looking to sacrifice the runner over, and bunts that one foul just out of reach for Polanco.
Polanco coming in instead of over, and that's why that ball got by him. Andre Ethier, 25-game hitting streak. Willie Davis with a 31-game hitting streak, which is the most in Dodger history. That, by the way, was the 3rd strike, that foul ball, so Polanco didn't have to come up with it. But Terry Collins told us a story before the game today. When he was the minor league director in 2006,
Jose Reyes swinging and missing at the first pitch.
a young outfielder the Dodgers had signed off the campus of Arizona State came up to him and said, "I want to quit." That outfielder was Andre Ethier. And Terry talked him in. He said, "Andre, you can do that, but you're making a mistake. You have talent to reach the big leagues." And he talked him into continuing his career. And here he is, as he ever had a good career. But Terry, very influential to a lot of young players in that Dodgers system.
Reyes wraps it to the right side of the infield past Howard, but Halladay's there covering for the out. Perfect execution on the right side of the infield by Roy Halladay.
Yeah, Halladay not taking for granted that Howard is going to get to the ball, continued, and they just get Reyes. Good play by both Valdez and Halladay.
And just a half step better than the fleet-footed Reyes. Here's Daniel Murphy now. He singled and scored the game's only run in the 4th. A runner in scoring position for him here in the 5th. Well, Andre Ethier is not only creeping up on that Dodgers franchise record for hits in consecutive games, but the major league record for a hitting streak by a left-handed batter. The Hall of Famer George Sisler hit in 41 straight. And Ethier at 25 and counting. Dodgers in action tonight. Halladay strands a base runner in the 5th. We've already reached the middle of the afternoon. And it's 1-0 Mets. Magical Arc aired from 1967 to 1994. Guests included Charles Barkley, former Flyer and current GM Paul Holmgren, and our very own Tim McCarver, who debuted the Philadelphia Fanatic on the show back in 1978. Channel 6 in Philadelphia.
Right.
Long-running hit Captain Noah and his Magical Arc. Tim McCarver took a ride on the Magical Arc.
Yeah, I mean, children grew up in this area with Captain Noah. Captain and Mrs. Noah, she made the puppets, and they were on forever. I think 35 years in the Philadelphia area. And wearing that uniform, it was kind of interesting because I would take the uniform home at night after a game, and then after the show, I'd go to the ballpark and wear the uniform. Well, I had every trucker in the area looking down at my, and I'm thinking, I know what they're saying on their CB, those CB radios, CD radio.
You see Ben Francisco gets hit in the shin, or in the ankle rather, here.
Looked like his left ankle. Thought that was a ball initially, but Ben appears to be all right. Like when he planted that left foot, it hit him right on the outside of his left foot. Said he appeared to be all right. Now Charlie Manuel has concern.
Well, if Ben Francisco takes his uniform home tonight like you did before your Captain Noah appearance, there's going to be a mark on that ankle.
Well, the point was every trucker in the area is looking down in my car. I've got my uniform on, and they're probably thinking, here's some bozo thinks he's with the Phillies. Wearing a uniform around town. You can imagine what they thought.
Francisco Ward to lead things off in the 5th for John Mayberry now. Mayberry grounded to second in his first appearance today. It's the first time the Phillies have had their leadoff hitter aboard. Francisco still wincing as he gets back to the bag. There isn't a whole lot of depth for Charlie Manuel right now. On either side of the scorecard, might we add. He's got some high-profile players on the offensive side trying to come back, including, of course, Chase Utley. That's where the conversation begins. And some concern in the bullpen as well with Lidge, now Contreras, J.C. Romero. Though Ruben Amaro Jr., the Phillies GM, told us yesterday, none of that is a long-term concern. And there's a base hit in the left. They expect to have that group back this year, and that includes Chase Utley, Tim, who's made some progress the past 72 hours or so.
In fact, we were out early yesterday at the ballpark and watched Chase turn double plays at second base for the first time this year. Problems with his right knee, and right now the Phillies do not think that he'll have surgery or that surgery will be required on that knee. Dan Warthen out to talk to Jonathan Neese.
So runners aboard to start the inning. First time that the Phillies have mounted a multiple base runner attack against Neese. And the guy who's filling in for Chase Utley until his return, Wilson Valdez, has a chance. Ken Rosenthal, Wilson Valdez has played well, but everyone agrees that Chase Utley makes this lineup what it's been the past few years.
There's no question, Matt. And Utley is very hopeful that he can avoid surgery. He's trying to do everything he can. He's one of these players who's really serious about honoring his contract, being there for his teammates. Ruben Amaro Jr., the Phillies GM, says he believes that Utley will be back. It's just a matter of when. And when I asked Chase yesterday, he said, yes, that's what I'm working toward. Obviously, I don't know what the outcome is, but at this point, I'm optimistic.
I think the Mets are looking for a bunt here. You got the bottom part of the order. I don't think Valdez will be bunting. I'd be surprised if he does.
He does square around to bunt and bunts it foul.
You're bunting for your number 8 hitter, playing his first game. He's had one at bat in the major leagues this year, and then Roy Halladay follows him. I don't think this is a bunting situation, but Charlie Manuel obviously putting it on. He may take it off here.
Valdez had a couple of base hits and an RBI against Neese back on the 7th of April. It's the first time the Phillies have really put him in duress. You see the corners start to cheat in now for the Mets. One hop to second. Murphy stabs at it to knock it down. They get the out there, and Reyes' relay is in time to double off Valdez.
4-6-3 double play, and Murphy holds his ground, battling it, and Reyes with that strong arm to get Valdez. No people are going to question that. Why not bunt in that situation? To me, the bunt is not in order. I mean, Valdez hit it hard. Unfortunately for the Phillies, it was right at the second baseman, Daniel Murphy.
So now two-gone runner at third for Dane Sardinha. Sardinha up from AAA Lehigh Valley, as we mentioned, in place of the very popular catcher Carlos Ruiz. Popular just as much among the fan base as he is with his teammates. Ruiz, one of those players that Ruben Amaro Jr. knows he won't be without long, or at least hopes he won't be without for long. Lower back tightness had him on the shelf. He left Wednesday's game and was placed on the disabled list. And it's 2 balls and a strike now to Sardinha.
It's funny how a strong rotation can help the other parts of the roster too. The Phillies have 3 catchers on their roster now, and they're carrying only 11 pitchers. They're the only team in the major leagues with 11 pitchers on their roster right now.
And I should correct that statement with Ruiz not on the DL per se, but unavailable today. They have not made a roster transaction on him yet.
They can actually wait till Tuesday to do that.
Fox Saturday Baseball is presented by Bud Light Lime. The right taste of Bud Light with a refreshing splash of 100% natural lime flavor. So after the base on balls to Sardinha, now it's Halladay. Runners at the corners with 2 gone.
Roy Halladay and Carlos Beltran entirely too deep in right field.
Oh, you almost had that one called right there. Karnak McCarver on top of that one, but Murphy able to make the play. Nothing in the fifth. Advisor is sponsored by Chevrolet, proud to support youth baseball across the country. By Michelin, a better way forward. And by ExxonMobil, taking on the world's toughest energy challenges. Hits and runs at a premium on this afternoon in Philadelphia. Welcome back to Citizens Bank Park into the sixth inning where the Mets lead the Phillies 1-0. David Wright leads things off against Roy Halladay. It'll be Wright, Beltran, and Bay for New York. The run coming in the top of the fourth on 3 straight base hits to begin the inning. Halladay has in fact yielded just the 1 run on 6 singles this afternoon. 1 ball and 1 strike to David Wright. Some rare success for David against Halladay in the fourth in the form of a base hit that makes him just 3 for 20 career against the 2-time Cy Young Award winner. Two balls and 2 strikes now. Roy Halladay has been certainly tough on the National League in his year plus as a Philly. He's been tougher still on the NL East and particularly stingy against the New York Mets as he fans right 1 away. This May, Fox Sports will bring you some of the game's best teams and the sport's biggest stars in a special 3-week primetime event you won't want to miss. Fox Saturday Baseball in primetime begins May 14th in high definition only on Fox. Here's Carlos Beltran now with 1 gone.
Kind of eerie that you would mention that because the first of those primetime games, Red Sox and Yankees, Roy Halladay turns 34.
To match the uniform number he wears.
Right.
As Carlos Beltran pops it for Rollins, 2 gone. Well, here are the numbers. Against the Mets, since joining the Phillies last season, he has been 5-0. And against the East, an incredible 16-1 over that period. 2 quick outs for him here, and now it's Jason Bay.
Last time the Mets beat Roy Halladay way back in 2001 when he was pitching for the Toronto Blue Jays.
Yeah, and just reading the pitchers who were involved in the decision on that day, you don't even need a year to know that it was quite a while ago. Steve Traxel and Armando Benitez.
Oh, nice going.
Shut out Halladay's Jays that day. Steve Traxel, no doubt, lulling the Jays to sleep with that rather deliberate between pitch pace that he had cultivated for so many years into success. Steve Traxel matched only by Armando Reynoso in drawing the ire of sports writers and broadcasters around the league for the pace which they applied their craft.
Sports writers trying to get out that Bulldog edition, right?
Swing and a miss by Bay. 2 balls and 2 strikes. Jason Bay hitless 0 for 2 today so far. Ike Davis waiting on deck, also without a hit thus far today. You know, the Roy Halladay influence has been felt across the league. You know, not just in terms of how younger pitchers prepare, but there are pitchers in the big leagues, established in major league rotations, who have taken to patterning their game off the 2-time Cy Young Award winner. Charlie Morton of the Pittsburgh Pirates is a guy who admits to have looked at a lot of Halladay tape in the offseason and actually patterning his delivery, his motion, after that of Halladay. A swing and a miss and a 1-2-3-6. A couple of the strikeouts for the 7-time All-Star. He still trails, however. It's 1-0 Mets. Afternoon as we head to the bottom half of the 6th inning. They'll have the top of the order to try to break through against John Neese, Victorino, Polanco, and Rollins. Shane Victorino started play with the 5th best average in sunshine in the National League this year. A .444 afternoon hitter, but hitless so far today and behind 0-1. 1 run rather on 6 hits for the Mets and nothing on the 2 hits for Philadelphia. quickly 0-2 to Victorino.
We talked earlier how Terry Collins, when he was the coordinator of the minor leagues for the Dodgers, helped Andre Ethier. Well, there was a young switch hitter in the organization then, too, and his name was Shane Victorino, who didn't want to switch hit anymore. Terry said, look, young man, while you're with the Dodgers, you're going to switch hit. Now, if you get to the big leagues, it doesn't matter. Then the manager can tell you what you want. And if you get to the big leagues, you can hit as a left-handed batter. But while you're here, you're going to be a switch hitter. And here Victorino is in the major leagues, a very important part of the Phillies as a switch hitter.
I would guess to think that he'd look back on those days with Terry Collins a little differently now than he might have viewed it at the time.
That's exactly right. Terry said that last night before the game they were kidding about that. And here Shane Victorino is on the heels of a 3-year deal worth $10 million a year as a switch hitter.
An all-star, a 3-time Gold Glover. Here's Placido Polanco now.
And even though they're in the same division, there's nobody happier about Shane Victorino's career than Terry Collins.
Breaking ball in for a strike. Boy, John Neese has had the Midas touch this afternoon. And there are those that suggest him that guys like John Neese, the softer tossing left-handers. That's lined into left and the third base hit of the afternoon for Philadelphia. Well, more on that mix in a moment. First, we check in with Chris Rose for a DirecTV game break.
All right, Matt, down in St. Pete, James Shields trying to become the first Ray ever to toss 3 straight complete games. He gets out of a bases-loaded jam in the 5th with a strikeout there of Alexi Amarista. And then the lone run so far off the bat of Matt Joyce. Solo shot his second of the year off of Joel Pinheiro, who's making his season debut. It's 1-0 Rays in the 6th. To see every baseball game and the most in HD, it's 1-800-DirecTV. Guys, how about the Rays pitching turning it around?
Chris, thanks. Yeah, they're pitching and all those interchangeable parts that Joe Madden has. Matt Joyce hits the home run today. Ben Zobrist had a pretty good month and a half the other day.
On Thursday gets the Twins, yeah.
That's a fun club to watch because Joe Madden's had to do a lot of engineering there, if you will. Ball and no strikes, the count to Jimmy Rollins. Back to what we were discussing a moment ago, and in trying to explain in part at least the success John Neese has had today. A lot of people feel like the softer tossing left-hander is the kind of template pitcher that has a better chance to shut down the Phillies than the big-time power arm. That's off Neese's glove, and Rollins is aboard.
Neese can't come up with it, and Reyes can't get to it. So it's off the glove of Neese. And Jonathan fielded that ball. It could have been a double play ball, but you saw Reyes go toward the bag because of that, and that prevented him from breaking in on the ball immediately. But I mean, the biggest thing with Jonathan Neese, with that style of delivery, he's a left-hander. Pete Rose used to yell at left-handers who didn't throw hard, and he'd yell from the dugout, if you were a right-hander, you wouldn't be here. He used to yell that to Randy Jones all the time. And Randy Jones, Pete could not hit Randy Jones, and you couldn't say that about many pitchers in Pete Rose.
Here's Ryan Howard now with runners aboard and 1 away. I could see Randy Jones being a frustrating assignment for Pete Rose and anybody else, just flipping left-handed sinkers up there
right.
until you're blue in the face.
That's exactly right. And that's a type of pitcher, even though he throws a little harder than Randy Jones, he's a lot bigger. But I think Jonathan Neese can be a star for the New York Mets. I think he can be a 15 to 18 game winner once he gets his feet on the ground, and as we said in our scouting report, if he gets the confidence he needs.
Behind Ryan Howard, 2 balls and no strikes. Howard had the big night yesterday, 2 home runs, 6 driven in. He lifts that one into right center. Pridey is there for it. Polanco tags up and gets to third. There are 2 away now. Maybe on an afternoon where the wind is moving a bit differently, that ball does damage. But as it turns out today, Howard hit that one into the teeth of the wind. Blowing right in and knocking a lot of that down. Although there hasn't been a lot out there to begin with because Nice has rolled so many ground balls.
Right.
Here's Ben Francisco now with 2 on and 2 out.
Only 3 fly ball outs to the outfield this afternoon for the Phillies.
You know, just another word on how good John Nice was before he was a professional. And I know these are high school numbers. 2005, his senior year at Defiance High School in Ohio. He allowed 1 run for the season. 12-0, .12 ERA. 1 run in 76 innings. And again, I know that's high school, but I don't care what level you're working at. When you allow 1 run in the season. Jam shot popped him up into foul territory. Davis running it down and making the catch to retire the side.
Jonathan Nice thinking right now, I like Ike.
We'll return to Philadelphia after a word from your local Fox station. Well, Ike Davis ran down the pop-up that stranded a pair of runners in the bottom half of the 6th inning. He'll lead off the top of the 7th with he and the Mets on top 1-0. Davis, Tolle, and Pridey. It has been a pitching and defense type of afternoon in Philadelphia today. We welcome you back to Citizens Bank Park with Chris Rose, Ken Rosenthal, Tim McCarver, Matt Vasgersian. A run on 6 hits for the New York Mets. All of them singles. And only 4 hits for the homestanding Phillies thus far today.
Terry Collins said that Ike Davis can adjust. You have to adjust to a swing like that. He was looking inside with that swing. That front foot was going right toward first base.
Caught looking at a called strike 3, 6 punch outs for Halladay today. He is certainly a big part of today's Jeep game summary. However, he trails Jonathan Neese 1-0. Carlos Beltran has a couple of hits. Neese has been terrific. Just the 4 hits yielded. He's walked a batter, and the Phillies' troubles with runners in scoring position continue. That's real counterintuitive, given they scored 10 runs last night, Tim. They're 3 for 21 in the series.
Davis limping because he hit that foul ball off his right foot. He wears that half shin guard to protect his right ankle, and sure enough, as often happens, the ball hits everything but the shin guard.
1 ball and 1 strike to count to Josh Thole. There haven't been many nights or afternoons in today's occasion when you could say Roy Halladay's been outpitched by somebody. That has been the case so far today. 1-2 to Thole. Left-handed batter waiting next. Josh Pridey on deck. And the 1-2 home. That's flipped to second base for Valdez. 2 gone. For Roy Halladay, Tim, the comparisons started immediately when Cliff Lee rejoined the rotation in the offseason. And with Halladay, Lee, Roy Oswalt, and Cole Hamels, the comparisons started to fly unfairly, certainly based on the vintage of baseball we're in now, to the 71 Orioles, as Pridey stands in with 2 gone and nobody aboard. I don't know that the modern game would allow for a staff of 4 20-game winners.
No way. You're right.
And thus the unfair part of that comparison.
Left to right, Dave McNally, Mike Cuellar, Jim Palmer, and Pat Dobson.
And maybe the most important footnote on that staff, outside the fact that they each won 20, is that never did the Orioles lose 4 straight in which that group started in back-to-back fashion.
You know how many pitchers they carried on the staff that year?
4?
9. 9.
That's unbelievable.
Teams today carry 12, 13 pitchers, even into the postseason. We mentioned earlier the Phillies, the only team in the major leagues with 11 pitchers, and the reason they can carry that few is because of the talent of Roy Halladay, Cliff Lee, who goes tomorrow night, and the other 2 starters, Oswalt and Hamels.
Another quick inning for Roy Halladay. He still trails, however, 1-0 Mets. Sponsored by Just for Men Mustache and Beard. Keep your edge. And by the new 2011 Jeep Grand Cherokee.
How about a cheesesteak? Man, that looked good. Nice and healthy.
What's your poison? Are you a Pat's or a Jim's guy? Or Geno's, maybe?
Pat's or Geno's. Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Either one. Or D'Alessandro's.
Oh.
That's out west. Oh, yeah.
Getting a little exotic on me.
Oh, yeah,
there.
on Henry Avenue.
1-0 Mets as John Mayberry leads things off in the home seventh. Phillies shut down, no runs on 4 hits thus far. And only one of those 4 knocks for extra bases. That was way back in the first when Polanco doubled. Slow breaking ball taken for a strike. 1-1 to John Mayberry Jr. leading things off. It'll be Valdez and Sardinia to follow. A ball and 2 strikes. You know, we talked a little bit about John Neese and his amateur background last half inning. Terrific high school numbers in Ohio. He went to the same high school in Ohio that Dodger first rounder Chad Billingsley attended.
2 years ahead of John. John a sophomore and Chad a senior. He has really pitched well this afternoon.
You could say, I suppose, that John Neese's history to a degree with the Mets began the day he was born, October 27th, 1986. The night the Mets beat the Red Sox in Game 7 of the World Series.
Oh, what a great note that is.
Destined to be a Met.
Yep.
It's a full count to John Mayberry now, 3-2.
Look down at the Met dugout and see Mookie Wilson hanging over the railing and thinking about that famous Game 6. Ball going through Bill Buckner's legs, and Mookie continues to insist that it would have been an infield hit and not an error, and I agree with him. Maybe an error on allowing it to go through to the outfield and having Ray Knight perhaps held at third, but there's no way that Bill Buckner, in my view, would have fielded that ball cleanly and beaten Mookie to the bag.
John Mayberry Jr. with one swing has tied the ball game.
Curveball out of here.
Wilson Valdez follows with the ball out to right center. Takes the wide turn before applying the brakes. Home run, base hit. Opening the 7th for the Phillies.
First home run by John Mayberry this year. We had the telecast 2 years ago at Yankee Stadium when John Mayberry hit his first major league home run. What a thrill that was.
Dan Warden out for a visit. As we remind you that this week it's back-to-back days of the UEFA Champions League semifinals, beginning with one of the world's greatest sports rivalries as Barcelona battles Real Madrid on Fox Soccer. And then Manchester U takes on Schalke on FX. Check local listings for the start time in your area. Taylor Buchholz is up in the bullpen for the Mets as Dane Sardinia digs in now.
That means you may see a bunt right here. Neese trying to get Sardinia to commit earlier than he might. But with Buchholz up, for the Mets, actually,
Ball and no strikes to Dane Sardinia. Remember, this was the part of the order, and we talked about this, Tim, in the 5th, when the Phillies were bunting with Valdez.
Yeah.
And then you had Sardinia and Halladay, and it was far too early a juncture to fathom lifting Halladay for a pinch hitter.
Now it's not, but there's no way that Charlie Manuel will make a move because no one's warming up the bullpen.
Only 78 pitches for his starter today. Be a little different story had the Phillies pulled off to a lead here. They have tied it on the Mayberry home run. And a breaking ball taken for a strike. 2-1 to Sardinia now. Well, Nice got out of jams in the 5th and 6th. Multiple base runners each inning. And I think Jonathan Nice has proven that the adjustment that he made with Dan Worthen on his pace with runners aboard is something that he could apply to more than just a one-start span. Some were watching and wondering if the wheels would come off when the Phillies mounted multiple base runner attacks. They did not. 3 balls and no strikes. Three and 1. 3 balls and a strike to Dane Sardinia. And there's ball 4. Second walk of the ball game. Both times they have been issued to the number 8 hitter. Corner infielders buying a little bit of time. It's Halladay and then the switch hitter Victorino. Excuse me, Tim.
I think they're gonna. They're talking on the mound about what to do on the bunt play. Do you have the rotation play where the third baseman charges and the shortstop Reyes goes to third, or do you play it straight up? Halladay, on the other hand, wants to bunt the ball down the third baseline and make David Wright field the ball.
He pulls back and swings away and sends a flare into foul territory. Well, I don't care if it is the pitcher hitting. If you're a corner infielder and you're charging in to cover the bunt and you see the guy with the bat pull back, that has to be a nervous moment. 0-1 the count to Halladay.
You don't want to be eating soup for a month. I think you go ahead and put the rotation play on, bring Wright in, and let Reyes cover third base.
The bunt is down but foul.
They did have the rotation play on where David Wright charged and Reyes went to third. If you're wondering who's holding the runner on at second base, well, it's the second baseman. So Wright charged, Reyes was over there, but it was bunted foul. So we'll see that play again, I'm sure.
Oh, 0-2 the count to Halladay. We'll see if Charlie Manuel has the bunt play on here with 2 strikes. He does. And Halladay pulls back. We have already seen a bunt play on with 2 strikes that's resulted in a strikeout this afternoon.
Well, with both your first and third baseman charging, there's really nowhere to lay the bunt down.
Shane Victorino next. Runners at first and second. Nobody out in the 7th. And Halladay again bunts it foul. That's strike 3.
I think it hit Halladay on the way to first base. That was called an out immediately by Lance Barksdale, the home plate umpire. It was a foul ball when it hit him in the box, so he was out automatically.
Well, that's going to be all for Jonathan Neese. Terry Collins is going to turn Shane Victorino around and let him bat left-handed, as the call has gone out to the right-hander Taylor Buchholz here in the 7th. Phillies have tied it, looking to take the lead. We'll be right back. Presented by Budweiser continues. Phillies and Mets all tied 1 apiece. Back with Tim McCarver, Ken Rosenthal, Chris Rose, Matt Vasgersian. Jonathan Neese is now off the field, but still open in terms of the line score. 6 1/3. He's responsible for a couple of base runners aboard here. Threw the ball very well this afternoon and yields to right-hander Taylor Buchholz. Buchholz making his 12th appearance of the year, and he has been very good of late, working on a bullpen season-high 6 consecutive scoreless innings that dates back to the 2nd week of the season. Here's Shane Victorino to face him with runners aboard. That's Valdez in Sardinia and only 1 away. Victorino was hitless against the starter John Neese. He'll turn around and bat left-handed for the first time today. Now, ball and no strikes.
You and I were talking about it during the break. Do you leave Victorino as a right-handed batter? Terry Collins saying he wants the right-handed pitcher, as Shane was 0 for 3 as a right-hander. Much better hitter as a right-handed batter this year.
A ball and a strike. The count to Shane Victorino. Again, Valdez in Sardinia board with 1 gone. Shane Victorino working on a distinction, a record, if you will. It's not exactly Cal Ripken passing Lou Gehrig, but it is a record nonetheless, maybe one that shines a little brighter in one of the particular 50 states. And he's a little closer to it still with a base hit into right. We'll explain what we're talking about in a moment. The runners held at third. A base hit by Shane Victorino has loaded the bases with one gone here in the seventh.
What determines whether a third base coach will send a runner or not often is who's up next with less than 2 outs. And you have a contact hitter in Polanco up next, one of the great 2-strike hitters in the game. He doesn't strike out a lot. So Juan Samuel properly holding up Valdez at third base. With 2 outs, you send him. With 1 out, you hold him, particularly with this guy up.
Placido Polanco with 41 hits leads Major League Baseball. He has added to his .390 average that opened the day, which was third best in the National League. He's been a one-man wrecking crew these past number of years with runners in scoring position. He's got the bases loaded here, and there's a strike. Valdez singled, Sardinia walked, and then Victorino singled. And for more on that that pursuit of the record we spoke of a moment ago, Ken Rosenthal has a bit more.
Matt, it's the all-time record for hits by a Hawaiian native, and it's owned by Mike Lum with 877. Victorino now 89 short.
Something that will go down later this year. As Polanco fists that one foul, it's still 0-2 now. And little did the lay fan know, Mike Lum is the only player in baseball history to have pinch hit for Henry Aaron.
What a great note. Yeah, Hammer usually said, I'll take care of this myself.
It's 0-2 now to to Polanco. Phillies just 1 for 8 with runners in scoring position today. The one hit Victorino single moments ago.
Good play, Tolley. And a pitcher obviously has to have confidence to do that with a runner on third. Josh Tolley moving to his right very well and smothering that breaking ball in the dirt.
So now Tolley and Buchholz want to make sure they're communicating properly. Jimmy Rollins waiting next, and then Ryan Howard. Just a reminder, NASCAR later tonight, 7 Eastern, 4 Pacific from Richmond.
Polanco, a .390 batter this year with 2 strikes. He led the National League with 2 strikes last year with only a .272 average.
And a breaking ball fouled away. It would seem, at least statistically, that the Mets have played right into Polanco's hands. Bases loaded, a situation in which he's thrived. 2 strikes, a situation that has certainly given him good results. And late in the ball game. And if you're going to carve up his splits, this is right in his wheelhouse. Batting .481 this year with runners in scoring position is Placido Polanco. Well, you got Josh Tolley setting up in the Bill Dickey stance. You know, up high, away from the plate. They do not want to make a mistake to Polanco here.
Well, you're not going to get the ground ball that way either. High fastballs, you don't get ground balls out of those. What they're looking for is a ground ball at somebody or a short fly ball to the outfield.
Bases loaded, 1 gone. Mayberry's home run started the inning. Phillies trying to take their first lead of the afternoon. Here's the 2-2. Into the gap in right center. Beltran is there to close the gap. Wind really grabbed that baseball. Tagging up from third to score is Valdez, and the Phillies have taken a 2-1 lead.
No better bat handler in the game than Polanco. hits it deep enough to right field to score the run. Good effort by Beltran, but the throw a little bit toward third base, and the Phillies have their first lead of the afternoon.
Let me ask you this. If the wind doesn't grab that ball and move it at the last minute from Beltran, he was not set up to make a throw based on where that ball landed in his glove. Does he have a better chance of throwing out the runner?
Yeah, probably. It's tricky in the outfield here at Citizens Bank Park. That's what Matt was talking about. He catches that ball about a little below the shoulder instead of catching it straight up, but that wind did play tricks with it.
Blowing in and toward the right field line. Check and throw at first base where Victorino's back. The Phillies have played it 2. A home run by John Mayberry, his first of the season, and a sac fly by Placido Polanco, his first sac fly of the season. Here's the pitch home to Rollins. It's taken for a strike. Jimmy 1 for 3 so far this afternoon. Rollins has now hit safely in 24 of his 26 games this year. Trying to cash in with 2 out here in the 7th. He takes a strike to fall behind 1-2. Ryan Howard on deck next. And nobody up behind Buchholz in the bullpen for the Mets.
That's a little surprising. Tim Burdick is the only left-hander in the bullpen for New York. And one would think that Tim would be the guy used against the only left-handed hitter in the lineup today. Of course, Rollins and Victorino are switch hitters, but Howard the only pure left-hander in the lineup.
And Rollins flips the ball to second, smothered by Daniel Murphy. A fine play to his right to minimize the damage at 2. But Victorino still thinks he's got it beat out.
I will bet that this is the best play Daniel Murphy has ever made from second base. And it all started with the home run.
First of the year by John Mayberry. Another in the inning has given the Phillies a 2-1 lead. with the lead as the Phillies get 2 in the bottom half of the 7th. A home run by John Mayberry, a sac fly by Placido Polanco. And it'll be Willie Harris here for the Mets, leading off from the bench. Harris pinch hitting for the pitcher spot, and then Reyes and Murphy for New York. Both of the runs charged to the starter John Neese, who was terrific today, and unless his mates can get him off the hook, is in line for a tough luck loss. Tim Burdack and Jason Isringhausen up in the bullpen for New York. 3 balls and no strikes to the pinch hitter. Just the 1 run against Roy Halladay. It came on 3 straight singles to open the 4th. And 3-1 to Harris now.
Normally with the pinch hitter leading off an inning, you don't have 2 guys in the bullpen. But clearly Burdick will be brought into the game to get Ryan Howard out and pitch to 1 hitter. And then one would think that Terry Collins will go to the right-hander after Howard. That's Isringhausen.
Full count, 3 balls and 2 strikes. There are some bad news things working for the Mets here. First and foremost, they're trying to come back against Roy Halladay. Secondly, they hit .211 from the 7th inning on. Only the Pirates and Nationals have struggled more at that point in a ball game. A great play by Wilson Valdez to his left. Highlight reel defense at second base on both sides of the scorecard today.
Boy, that is a terrific play. Ball pops out of his glove, but he retrieves it quickly, finds it. He's looking at the runner, trying to search for the ball at the same time. Real speed. The first grasp in the grass, not successful. Then he finally finds the handle and throws out a speedy Willie Harris. Good play.
There's Jose Reyes now with 1 gone. A rare hitless afternoon for Jose. One and 1. Phillies trying to keep their perfect afternoon record in check. 9-0 in day games at the start of play. And there's a base hit for Reyes, his first of the afternoon. Time for the Just for Men Keep Your Edge spotlight. It's on Roy Halladay, Tim, who this afternoon has struck out 7. Including 1 on a bunt attempt with 2 strikes.
We mentioned it earlier. Only 1 breaking ball that we can remember.
Just as Roy Halladay gives the Phillies the edge, you too can keep your edge with Just for Men mustache and beard. 18 consecutive strikes began the afternoon. And since 1990, only he and ex-Mets Sid Fernandez have been that efficient so early on. Here's Daniel Murphy now.
So it's been 21 years since a major league pitcher has thrown 18 strikes to start a game. Unbelievable.
Oh, and 1 the count to Daniel Murphy. Murphy doing his best this afternoon to shed the all-hit no-glove reputation that seems to have followed him around unfairly, according to many. He's played a fine defensive second base today. That's right on the ground for Valdez. Taylor made for 2. Roy Halladay still under 100 pitches through 8 and leading 2-1. Today's game presented by Budweiser is sponsored by your local Lexus dealer. By DirecTV. Don't just watch TV, DirecTV. And by Valvoline NextGen. Tim Burdack takes over here in the bottom of the 8th inning, and as Tim McCarver mentioned earlier, he is the lone left-handed bullet out of Terry Collins' bullpen. Ryan Howard, Ben Francisco, and John Mayberry for the Phillies. 2-1 Philadelphia. Both runs for the Phils coming in the bottom of the 7th. Trying to make a winner of Roy Halladay on this afternoon and put him at 4-1 to start the season. If you have a left-handed bullet, this is generally the place where opposing managers would use it, and that's to mitigate Ryan Howard. But in fairness to Ryan, he's made great strides against left-handed pitching the last couple of years, as you see Jason Isringhausen also up for the Mets. Again, Howard had the big 2-home run game yesterday, something that Met fans have seen all too often over the years. Only 2 active players have hit more against the Mets than Ryan Howard. And they are perennial Met thorns Chipper Jones and Pat Burrell. 1 ball and 1 strike. 1-2 now. Jonathan Neese started this afternoon, went 6 1/3. Taylor Buchholz pitched in the 7th, and now Burdack for a Mets bullpen, Tim, that just a couple of weeks ago was a bald guy and a bikini girl away from being a Benny Hill routine. They have shored themselves up nicely, however, in the last 2 weeks. Here's the 2-2.
Well, lefty against lefty is so lopsided. I really don't know how major league teams can get by with just one lefty in the bullpen. It's such a matchup game today, and I think for the betterment of the game, for the betterment of a team facing another team.
And Howard pops it up. The lone man on the left side of the infield is David Wright as the Mets played him in a shift, and there's 1 away here in the 8th. This week's guests, Justin Upton and Chris Young, 2 lucky guys who are watching every game during the season and sharing their experiences with fans throughout the season-long adventure in the Fan Cave. Check out what's going on at MLBFanCave.com. Follow at MLB Fan Cave on Twitter and like them at MLB Fan Cave on Facebook. Well, the lefty specialist is through for the afternoon. Jason Isringhausen called on with 1 away in the 8th. 2-1 Phillies. We'll be right back. via the Liberty Bell and back inside Citizens Bank Park. 2-1 Phillies here in the 8th. And to try to prevent any further home team damage, the Mets have made another change. Veteran right-hander Jason Isringhausen makes his 8th appearance of the year. A part of Generation K way back when. Went on to fame and fortune, perhaps to a larger degree, in other uniforms before returning to the Mets as he dusts Ben Francisco to fall behind 2-0. Francisco and Mayberry next with one away as Ben pops that one up out of play. Ken Rosenthal, this is perhaps one of the better comeback stories in baseball already this year, and Jason Isringhausen's return to the Mets is something that many fans didn't see coming as recently as a few months earlier.
No question, Matt. Jason only wanted to play for a few clubs. His agent Danny Horwitz called the Reds and they said, well, we really don't have a spot for you. So then Horwitz got in touch with the Mets, where the two assistant GMs, J.P. Ricciardi and Paul DePodesta, knew Izzy from his days with the A's. Ricciardi worked out Isringhausen in Port St. Lucie, Florida, and that night, Isringhausen went down to Jupiter, Florida, hang out with Chris Carpenter, his old Cardinals teammate. They're having a cookout at Carpenter's house. Ricciardi calls, says, listen, we need you for a physical at 6 a.m. tomorrow. And Izzy thought, well, here we go.
There's ball 4 to Ben Francisco. He's aboard with 2 gone. Yeah, a series of arm trouble, not the least of which was Tommy John surgery in 2009. Looked as though it might spell the end of the line for Jason Isringhausen. Mets have been very pleased with his results since he returned, as the numbers would indicate. He has to deal with a base runner here and 1 gone now for John Mayberry.
Part of the trio of Paul Wilson, Bill Pulsipher, and Jason Isringhausen that the Mets were expected a lot of back in the early 90s.
Runner goes. Toley's throw down to second base is not in time. However, Francisco slid off the bag and the tag is applied. Out at second is Ben Francisco.
Daniel Murphy has made a couple of good plays around second base today, and this is among his good plays. He stays with the tag. The hand came off. That's because he's got the glove in his left hand and he can't grab the bag. The glove won't allow him to. I think that glove kind of helped slide the left hand off the base.
I would agree. And a terrific second look at that play at second base.
It was. And a good call by Field and Culbreth, the second base umpire.
Well, Francisco had that ball beat down at second base. He was in front of the throw. But Murphy's stick-to-itiveness gets the out at second base.
Yeah, that was not a caught stealing. It was a caught tagging. Good play by Murphy.
And that's a call that goes the way of the Mets. One that didn't go their way. Similar call only at third base earlier this week involving Jose Reyes, which touched off quite a bit of controversy. So with 2 gone, Mayberry pops up to retire the side. Going to the top of the 9th. Last chance for the Mets, down a run. to Roy Halladay. 3 outs away from a complete game victory at home. David Wright, Carlos Beltran, and Jason Bay represent the last line of resistance for the Mets this afternoon. Wright has 1 of the 7 New York hits today. Roy Halladay, as you grow to expect every time he takes the ball every 5 days, has been terrific. 1 run, the 7 hits. He has struck out 7 and really only been in trouble once the entire afternoon. Behind David Wright here, 3-0. Seven hits, all of them singles. And with the exception of the 3 hits in the 4th, scattered. Leadoff hitter aboard, however, as David Wright draws ball 4, the tying run on base to start the 9th.
Out of nowhere, in front of Carlos Beltran, 4 straight balls from a guy who does not throw 4 straight balls very often.
Indeed, the first walk of the ballgame by Roy Halladay. Here's Beltran now.
Great hitting position for Beltran. No sense taking right here. You're going to get something around the plate to hit.
5 straight balls from a guy who began the afternoon with 18 consecutive strikes. Jason Bay next, and then Ike Davis. (2-0). And Halladay has missed with 6 straight.
How do you explain it? I can't.
Wind?
No.
There's the 2-0 home, and there's a strike. 2-1. Just a word on Roy Halladay's durability, his penchant for finishing what he started. 56 complete games since 2002. That's the most in the big leagues over that time. In fact, his 56 complete games since 2002 is more than 18 teams over that period.
Great note.
And the 3-1. A full count now. 3 balls and 2 strikes.
Now do you send David Wright? I think so. Remember what Terry Collins said before the game, telling us that in order to beat a guy with unusual talent, you have to do something unusual. You may not send him under normal circumstances, but you do here. That's a mistake right there. That's what Terry Collins told us. In order to beat a guy like Halladay, you've got to do something unusual. And it would be unusual normally to send a runner here. But against Halladay, you've got to send him.
There he goes as Beltran serves it into the opposite field, but right for Mayberry, 1 away. Jason Bay, the batter, now 0 for 3 this afternoon. And, you know, when you think about that, I don't know that there are many lineups that could say we can stand toe-to-toe with Roy Halladay and the Philly staff and just try to outslug him.
That's right.
So I don't know that the Mets are alone in that regard. You try to make something happen on the rare occasion you have an opportunity, to your point.
When it presents itself, like a 3-2 count with a guy who's struggling with control and a good hitter like Beltran up.
0-1 to Jason Bay. As per usual, Halladay has been incredibly efficient early in counts. 24 of 32 hitters have been issued strike 1. 0-2 to Bay now. The left-handed hitting Ike Davis next. You know, the Phillies have eaten well all year at the expense of the bottom dwellers in divisions. trying to go 11-1 against last place teams early on. 1-2 now.
Close on the 0-2, but if you miss, you have to miss inside.
Swing and a miss. 8 strikeouts for Halladay. Ike Davis 0 for 3 with a strikeout and a double play ball. Crowd on its feet, very much in anticipation of watching Roy Halladay finish what he started a little over 2 hours ago. There's strike 1 to Davis. On the ground to first, flag down by Howard to Halladay covering. A complete game victory for the 2-time Cy Young Award winner as Halladay takes care of the Mets. Phillies win it 2-1. Boy, on a terrific pitching staff like the 2011 Phillies, Roy Halladay is in a class by himself.
You know what he does too, Matt? He improves his defense. I mean, that is a terrific play by Ryan Howard to end the ball game, diving, and then the backhanded flip to Halladay covering. Not only is Halladay great, he makes his infield great too.
Since the start of 2010, when Roy Halladay joined the Phillies, he has now made 6 starts against the New York Mets. He is 6-0 in those ball games.
Man.
Phillies winners 2-1. They've taken the first 2 games of the series. And Roy Halladay improves his mark to 4-1, adding 8 strikeouts to his season total. And in a very quick, efficient 2 hours and 25 minutes, it's Philadelphia 2, New York 1. You know, you figured you might have to say this about one of the 2 starters, Tim. And we're saying it now about John Neese. He deserved a better fate today. He threw the ball very well himself.
He really did.